All right, so today we are diving into a story that is just wild. It starts with a popular streamer doing a pretty standard travel series, but it ends with his viewers literally in tears, saying that what they were watching was undoing decades of damage. So how on earth is that possible? Well, that's what we're going to break down.
Just look at this. This was a real reaction from someone watching a live stream thousands of miles away. It's this incredibly raw, powerful emotion, and you have to ask, why? What is going on here that's hitting people so hard over a travel stream? Let's get into it.
Okay, so here's the setup. The massively popular American streamer, iShowSpeed, decides to tour Africa. But what was supposed to be just, some fun, entertaining travel content, well, it turned into something way, way bigger. It kicked off these unexpectedly deep and emotional reactions from his audience back in the States.
Because for a whole lot of Black Americans watching, this wasn't just interesting, it was a full-blown revelation. What they were seeing in real time was in direct conflict with a story they'd been told their entire lives. A story about Africa that, as it turns out, was just completely wrong.
So let's talk about that. What was this old, flawed story that was suddenly getting blown to pieces? For decades, a very specific and frankly damaging image of the continent has been pushed by media all over the world.
On one side, you have the propaganda, this idea of Africa as one single, poor country. The image is always huts, jungles, and poverty. But the reality? The reality that people were actually seeing on this stream? Oh, it was a completely different universe. We're talking 54 unique, diverse nations, home to sprawling, modern cities with skyscrapers, unbelievably rich culture, and just this incredible spirit of resilience and innovation.
And a narrative this powerful doesn't just happen by accident. It was built piece by piece over generations. It's rooted in colonial history, in biased economic interests, and a global media that, for a very long time, found it much easier to just show tragedy while ignoring all the progress, the innovation, and the vibrant everyday life.
And this quote from another creator really hits it home. The shock wasn't just about the reality of modern Africa. It was the shock of realizing how deep the misinformation went. People were openly admitting they thought it was all sticks and mud. It wasn't just a lack of awareness. It was, as he says, straight ignorance.
So that's the big question, right? How can one streamer, one guy with a camera, even begin to chip away at decades of this powerful, ingrained narrative? The answer is all about the power of the medium itself.
See, unlike a polished documentary with a narrator telling you what to think, this was raw. It was real. Millions of people were watching an unfiltered, live experience to the eyes of a guy they already knew and trusted. And that simple act, it humanized and modernized an entire continent in a way traditional media had failed to do for 50 years.
Okay, so let's get specific. What were people actually seeing on these streams that was so revolutionary?
What was so mind-blowing? Here's the kicker. It wasn't lions and giraffes. It wasn't some ancient ritual. It was the complete and total modernity of it all. The normalcy. First up, they're seeing modern highways. And I mean not just roads, but highways, packed with luxury cars, with electric cars. That one simple image just completely vaporizes the whole huts and mud stereotype in an instant. Then they saw the energy, the incredible, buzzing nightlife and bustling streets of cities like Lagos, Johannesburg, and Nairobi. You see the ambition, the commerce. I mean, these are world-class cities, period. And yeah, probably the most important thing, they saw the people. Young, tech-savvy, stylish people who are just as connected to global culture as anyone in New York or London. This completely flipped the old, tired script of a continent that's somehow left behind. And look, this isn't just a few cherry-picked scenes from a live stream. The data backs this all up. According to the UN and the World Bank, a whopping 45% of Africa's population lives in cities. So what the stream was showing wasn't some weird exception. It was the daily reality for hundreds of millions of people. But here's where it gets really deep. This was never just a geography lesson. The reason people were literally crying is because this whole experience tapped into something so much more profound, especially for Black American viewers. And this quote just says it all. It just screamed home to your soul. I'm coming home, y'all. Suddenly, this isn't about discovering a place anymore. It's about discovering a piece of yourself. It's the powerful, overwhelming feeling of finding home.
And to really get why this is so powerful, we have to talk about something called generational damage. Think about it. This is the collective psychological wound that happens when a community is systematically cut off from its heritage, when you're fed a constant diet of negative, false stories about where your ancestors came from. It damages your identity, your sense of self-worth.
So for so many people watching, this became this incredible journey of healing. It was about undoing all those media lies. It was about finally reconnecting with a heritage that felt like it had been stolen. It was this huge realization that home isn't some broken place, but a vibrant, modern, and welcoming one. And for many, it was the first time seeing blackness not as a minority experience, but as the celebrated norm. It's huge.
And this whole thing isn't just happening in a vacuum. It's actually part of a much bigger and really significant shift that's happening right now, a change in how the entire world is starting to see Africa, all thanks to these new, direct, and authentic connections.
This quote really captures that feeling. It's a declaration. The propaganda against Africa stops today. There's this growing sense that the tide is finally turning, that people are ready to reclaim the story and see the continent for themselves.
And really, this is what it all boils down to. For decades, you had filtered, biased media that had a relatively low and often negative impact on people's real understanding. But one direct, authentic experience, even through a live stream, has this incredibly high, positive, and healing impact. It just shows you that authentic representation doesn't just matter. It can literally change everything.
And that leaves us with one last, really important question to think about. If so many of us could be so wrong for so long about an entire continent, a place with over 1 billion people, what else are we wrong about? What other stories that we take for granted are just waiting to be shattered?